because I can say it, all over cruise ships. And you can imagine, I'm sure, that there are less CCTV cameras, there are less cameras in crew areas than there are in passenger areas. I'm sure you can figure out why. But there are a lot of areas that one could go that wouldn't be covered by cameras in crew areas.
You're not going to monitor every hallway that you know the crew people are going to be in that isn't in any area of any consequence.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you're not as concerned about the crew, frankly, which is kind of, callous to say, but it's true.
So you cast a wider net on their activities. You don't try and focus on every angle of the hallway.
Yeah, exactly. So it is possible that Rebecca moved around the ship without there being any more CCTV footage of her, although I do think there probably was at least one camera at the crew pool. That seems like the kind of place on the bow of the ship.
That's what the Guardian article mentioned, but it's also notable that the author of that article was very clear in the fact that he couldn't tell if that was a new or a previously existing camera.
No, he said there are cameras on the promenade, the deck 4 promenade, which is where he originally thought that Rebecca had fallen from until he started talking to the crew. He said there were cameras there. He didn't have access to the crew area, so he would have had no way of knowing if there were cameras in the crew pool or not.
See, I thought somehow he had gotten himself into the crew pool area.
No.
Okay, then I'm wrong, which is not surprising.
If you were on my ship and somebody let him in, you would be in big old trouble, like a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Now, your press pass doesn't get you in there.
Yeah. Well, his wouldn't. That's true. Yeah.
And they might not have had one in the crew pool. Actually, it's possible. But it kind of looks like, but I can't be 100% certain. Kind of looks like from up on the bridge, the control room, where the captain and the pilot is and everything. They would be able to see down into the crew pool area.
Yeah. So
But I'm not 100% sure that they can.
We'll talk about that in theories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The other thing I do want to mention is I talked about Rebecca being maybe seeming a little drunk.
Possibly potentially
drunk, yeah. But she was just getting off shift, which makes me think.
I thought she got off her shift at 2?
She just got when she was trying to pull Melissa, quote unquote Melissa's eyelashes
off.
Earlier. Yeah, that she had literally just gotten done with work, and so that makes me think that she was not drunk because it's super unallowed. And that's not to say that people don't break the rules. And yes, it is true, Joe, that it's almost the only thing to do as a crew member when you're not working is to drink. But there are a lot of really, really harsh restrictions on that. And again, I didn't work for DCL. I worked for a different cruise line, which again, I'm not going to tell you which one it was because I don't want you to know. But on the cruise line that I worked for, crew members were forbidden to have a blood alcohol level above 0.05. Like, seriously. This is for a ton of reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
And does apply to literally all crew. In fact, that's the minimum. Or the maximum, I guess, is really the better way to say it. Obviously, the higher ranking you go, the less intoxicated you're allowed to be. I was friends with the first mate on our ship. He was one of only 4 Americans in the crew of 900.
So you were one of the other 4?
I was one of the other 4. And he was only allowed to drink off ship and had to be under 0.02 at all times when he was on the ship.
Well, if he's not drinking on the ship, how can he even be 0.02?
When they're at port.
When you're at port.
Oh.
So we actually had...
You have to sober up before you walk back on board.
The only time I was on that ship for 6 months, and I hung out with him a lot. And the only time I ever saw him drink was when we had to stay in port overnight in Nassau because there was a storm that we couldn't get out of port. And that was the only time I ever saw him drink. And he had 2 drinks over the course of 6 hours. And that was it. And that's life for those people. Again, you can imagine why you would require your crew to be that sober.
Oh, hey, we have this major catastrophe. Follow Drunky McDrunkerson over there.
Exactly.
To the lifeboat.
Exactly. The crew is the emergency crew. There's no one else to help you off the ship if something goes wrong. And so you can't, they are, the crew is the firefighting crew. And it's not just there's some people on the ship who are specifically firefighter crews. It's like, no, you leave your job that you're doing, your other job, and go fight that fire that's on the ship. If somebody's having a medical emergency and you're on the medical team, yes, there are doctors on there, but there are also emergency medical responders, and they're selected, again, from all different areas of the ship. And so if it happens that you are super, super drunk, like really, really drunk, and something goes wrong, suddenly you're in charge of trying to get people off a ship. It's a huge liability. On top of that, while we're talking about liability, of course, there's the liability of, if you get drunk and do something stupid, technically the ship is liable in ways of, like, if you hurt yourself, but also if you hurt a passenger.
Yeah.
In any way.
Can happen.
Yeah. You can't get drunk. You really can't get drunk on the job, and you're required to stop drinking 2 hours prior to your shift. So I don't think Rebecca was drunk at that time. I think she probably was drunk later.
So this is not World War II sailor drinking style.
No.
Nowhere near that.
Mm-mm.
Can I ask a question real quick? So the closed circuit television of supposedly Rebecca on the telephone, was it, what time do we know? What was the
5:45?
5:45.
5:45?
Yeah.
Okay. And the friend under the name Rebecca, Melissa, says that they were hanging out at about 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
And she was supposed to be reporting for duty at 9 a.m.?
I know. That's what I was thinking, too.
This timeline, I mean, I get it. She's in her early 20s. Sleep doesn't matter. I remember those times a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, like, that just seems... That's one of the things that always kind of makes me scratch my head about this whole series of events that are laid out of supposed sightings of her.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's not Rebecca in the CCTV footage, but I also don't necessarily think that she intended to stay up that late. I mean, frankly, when I would go out on the ship, my job was less intense than the one that Rebecca was doing, but, I would go out and you stop drinking 3 hours before your shift. You sleep for those 3 hours, you wake up and you go to your shift. And you're probably hungover and you're probably going to hate yourself, but it was fun for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty easy to do. Yeah. And actually, when I sleeping on a cruise ship, best sleep of my life. It's totally dark. There's the slight rocking. You're in this little cocoon of a bunk. It's great.
I guess there's also, the thing that I forget is part of, we all have to wake up and get ready for our day and then commute to the job.
Yeah, there's no commute.
There's no commute.
Yeah.
So
a little time savings there,
You could probably wake up 20 minutes ahead of time and shower and brush your teeth and have 15 minutes to just figure out where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get a cup of coffee and a little brekkie.
Yeah. Theories I think we should talk about.
Are we there?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Unless you want to talk about, the cost of alcohol in Crew Bar or anything like that.
No. Yeah, what was the cost of alcohol in Crew Bar?
Cheap.
Really? Good.
Oh, yeah. You could get a Corona for $1 and, a bottle of wine for like $3. Mm-hmm. There's no liquor in our Crew Bars, although I've heard from other people that DCL does do liquor in Crew Bar, but I think that's silly and I don't think they probably actually do.
That's how they make it the happiest place on earth.
Maybe, yeah. I'm going to get a couple little business housekeeping things out of the way before we actually do theories. First off, this stood out to me a lot.
Red.
Well, no, it stood out to me a lot, and I just got really annoyed, so I just want to say it right off the bat. You'll read links to an AMA with a quote-unquote former cruise ship employee. Yeah, and this person claims that you just drop the bodies off at the nearest port if somebody dies on the ship, which is not true. You drop it off at the nearest port to be shipped home. But the way that it was represented in this whole debate made it sound like a cruise line cares so little for death on the ship that they would just drop the body.
So they would just drop them off at whatever little island they were docking at. Who cares if it doesn't have airplane service? We just got to get the body off the ship.
Exactly, and that is a blatant misrepresentation.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that nobody takes it that way when they're reading about this.
Yeah, they call FedEx, and the FedEx drivers, they're waiting to meet them when they get to the port.
No, actually not.
Brown doesn't do that?
No, FedEx.
Also, if you read some of these AMAs, you may or may not notice that, yes, 2 years ago I did share my thoughts on this case on one of those threads. And yes, I'm saying almost the exact same thing now, but you guys keep asking for this story, so we're going to do it anyway.
All right.
Right? Okay.
All right.
So now it's really theory time.
Now it's really theory.
Because housekeeping's out of the way.
Housekeeping's out of the way.
Okay.
All right. Great.
First theory, murder.
Murder. I'm liking this one.
It's possible, but I find it really unlikely.
You think it was Mickey Mouse?
No, I don't think it was Mickey Mouse.
A vengeful Mickey.
You'll
Hey, everybody!
I got a big knife.
Sorry, that was Towley. I know.
Goodness. Okay, so I've read, and you will probably read too, from people who were, quote, on that ship literally a week before, unquote, and they said that their cruise was perfectly smooth sailing.
Yeah.
So there's no way that the sea could have been that rough, and obviously the crew is lying about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what actually dictates the sea and the weather and stuff like that? The weather.
Yeah.
And do you know what is liable to change pretty quickly? The weather.
Oh, yeah?
I'm actually weirdly going to defend these people a little bit because the one time that I went on a cruise, it was beautiful weather the whole time, except for the last night heading back to Florida. And apparently, we went through some pretty rough seas. The person who was with me was nauseous from it being really, really rocky. I, however, had been partaking of the booze to the point that I had passed right out and was soundly sleeping through the whole thing and had no idea. So I can see how people would do. The sea was great the whole time. I never noticed anything. I drank like a half a bottle of booze.
Well, but it's also possible that a week before the sea was perfect.
Well, yes, and the sea changes on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
for sure.
I-
So it's absurd.
Yeah, I agree.
That they're lying about the weather? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's silly. I also it doesn't give me such a problem that the bank card was used.
No, because
Either.
if somebody had murdered her and taken her bank card, they would have used it multiple times, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I don't know if you guys, I've got a few things like Netflix, for example. They just
Yeah.
automatically ding my card. once a
Exactly.
month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Auto withdrawals are the best thing ever.
They
Yeah,
sure
they're
are.
handy.
You
Yeah.
never miss a payment.
I know.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
great.
And so it could have just been that.
It could have. One of the things that you do when you're on a cruise ship is you get a P.O. box. I mean, like, not everybody does, but it makes life so much easier if you go and get a post office box. And you just pay the monthly subscription on your card and pay the monthly fee or whatever, not
So there's a
subscription.
bajillion monthly
There's so
things.
many things that could be. So it doesn't really...
We don't know what it was that the withdrawal was for.
I could not tell. I mean, it was hard to tell. A couple people I saw online saying, "Oh, it was found to be a subscription," but I think I think they were just assuming, like we are, that it was a subscription because I wasn't ever able to find anything to substantiate that.
Even the credit card company wouldn't tell their family what
Right?
it was.
Yeah.
Kinda
And
jerks.
even if it was stolen and used one time, I mean, it's not
That's not.
so hard to get into other crew members' rooms. That's
Oh,
why
I
you
was
have a
actually
safe.
thinking about just an online hack, but yeah.
There's a lot of different ways that somebody could have gotten that. I mean, also the Facebook login. I don't know about you guys. You guys don't actually use Facebook that much. My boyfriend also does not use Facebook that much, and he gets little emails from Facebook all the time saying, "Hey, somebody tried to access your account from this place." And I think they do go after those accounts that aren't used as much because it's like the people aren't going to notice that they're hacked if they're not using their account. So that
I
doesn't.
guess I better start using my account more.
Actually, weirdly is evidently they do this on a regular basis, but I didn't know this. Is you guys heard about the recent leak of all the LinkedIn information?
Yeah.
I apparently was in that batch, and Facebook figured it out because they forced me to change my personal account password recently.
Right, but they forced you. It didn't just happen automatically.
Right, but what I'm saying is that I could have been hacked at any time and would have not known it. It's only because of them, because I had no idea I was in that leaked batch. And those leaks come out much later, so it's very easy. I agree that she could have just been hacked. I mean, how many times have we had people try to join our Facebook group who look like perfectly normal people?
Yeah,
When you
they were
review their
bots.
online profile, and then as soon as they get in, they're offering to sell sunglasses, Ray-Bans for super cheap to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's impossible to tell. So I guess I'm not so bothered by that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes people share their passwords with other people, too.
Yeah, one thing I was reading about online was, and actually this person made a really good point, was that, if somebody you love dies, friends have passwords, or it's easy to guess what their password is, and it's not unheard of that you would, log in to their stuff, and, maybe you get drunk and change the password. I don't know.
Well, maybe you want to go in there and delete some derogatory stuff.
I was going to say, there's that rule among friends that, hey, if I die, there's some certain things that you need to remove from all of my profiles on my computer.
I mean, it was significantly later than that, though. I mean, it was in September,
I understand that.
But it would explain having the password.
But this does nothing to explain the whole murder theory. So
there's not any good substance to the murder theory. Except for the vague rumor that Rebecca might have been in a love triangle between her lady love and a quote-unquote older man. I really can't find a source for this. I can't find any additional information other than basically that one sentence said 4 different ways.
So basically Minnie found out about Mickey and her?
Yeah, something like that.
That's
and pushed her overboard? Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is the cruise, besides the swimming pool up in the forecastle of the ship, where else was there that the crew could go, where they were actually in an open place with a railing where somebody could push her overboard without anybody noticing?
Guaranteed no one noticing?
Yeah. Nowhere. Yeah. Well, were there places where there were crew could go mix next to the railing with the passengers, or were there places set aside besides the pool where the crew could go and have a nice little outside little promenade space, and that they could look at the ocean from or something like that?
I mean, the promenade space, but they would have to be approved. I mean, Rebecca would have been approved to be in certain passenger areas. The promenade would have been one of them. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, since I don't know who her lover and this older man were, I don't know, what if they would have been allowed up there or not. And I also know that it takes but a second for somebody to walk out a door onto the promenade.
Okay, but I was just thinking, if you wanted to murder a crew member on a cruise ship, if you wanted to murder one of your fellow passengers, if you're one of the guys that can afford to get a really nice cabin with your own balcony and everything, then you could lure somebody in your cabin and then murder them and just push them overboard. But
they're going to be on tape going to your room. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, there's ways around that. You just cut the cable to the camera.
That's not a thing, but okay.
But, yeah.
I mean, they're all like installed in the wall.
Or one of my other tricks.
There's not what you see at the 7-Eleven with the big coax cable loop underneath it.
But you can just take a sticky note and just stick it to the lens, and you're
because nobody will ever go, that's weird, this person disappeared, and this line actually went orange for a while.
That also assumes that there's only one camera in a hallway, which I can tell you is not true. There are about every 6 or 7 doors in passenger areas.
Well, anyway, but we're off topic here. Let me get back to what my original point was, is that if you wanted to murder somebody and you had your own balcony and everything, you could probably get away with it. There's ways to do it. But if you want to murder somebody down in cruise quarters, how the hell are you going to get their body up to somewhere where you can pitch them overboard without somebody seeing it?
I guess
leaving aside the cameras too.
The addition to that is that I guess you could technically do that off of the promenade, but again, it'd be really hard to guarantee that nobody would see you. Mm-hmm. You could do it in the crew area, except for the wall's too high in the crew pool area. Yeah. To pitch someone over.
That's why
I'm gonna pull the famous card, which is you're making a presumption. Okay, so let's say that somebody has a reason to kill her. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they dumped her overboard. They could have stashed her in something that they knew was going to go away in a not so well monitored area.
Well,
that's completely plausible too.
Do you know how
actually a hell of a lot easier.
You know how they deal with trash on cruise ships?
They compact it. Mm-hmm. So you shove her down the garbage chute. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds cruel.
She's already dead. She's not going to mind.
But it's what if people have done this stuff before, is they shove the body in the compactor and they run the compactor, and then when it gets back to wherever it goes and it pushes out that big giant cube of disposed Mickey ears, there's a body in it, but nobody knows because it's picked up by a forklift and driven to the landfill.
And the rest of the garbage probably doesn't smell that great either.
No, it actually smells probably worse than a dead body does.
It's a complete and total inside. It would have to be, for murder to have worked, a pretty well engineered or spread across several people to pull off.
I agree, and I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, getting to the trash compactor again without being seen going to be kind of hard.
Not really. I mean,
Or you'd have to have a friend who reset the switch on that camera so that it, there's loops and all of that. But let's just say somebody shut it off or shut off a bank and you run and you toss it in and